Evening. It's time for our book study, Rise of the False Gods. Did you miss me this weekend? I missed you. At the same time, I took advantage of the weekend to take extra good care of myself. As you know, we had a very challenging weekend by right of consciousness, I guess. And you have to recover from those kinds of things. You have to take care of yourself. You have to rest, or you can literally make yourself sick. This is all about transformation through illumination. And that's what I hope you get a little bit of when you um, join me for our book study. Hopefully, when you read the book on your own, you can get this book on Amazon. You can also get it on Kindle. And if you're a Prime member, you can get it for free on Kindle. So and you can, it's best to have a copy if you can, because there's exercises in the back of the book that you might want to take advantage of and, write it in, whatever works for you. The important thing is not, what you got, but what you do with it. If this is your first time visiting, welcome, welcome, welcome. And know that you can get all of the videos on Rise of the False God by going to YouTube and typing in Rise of the False Gods, Alicia Leslie, and that'll bring you to my channel, which is Mundane Mystic. It's all about taking the spiritual principles, and how we apply them in our everyday lives. A lot of people think you've got to be some kind of a woo woo, highly evolved spiritual being in order to really appreciate these things and metaphysics and like that. But that's why I call myself the mundane mystic. I talk about folks, everyday life, the way it is, right where we're at tonight. If you're following along in the book, oh, God, always remember to say, don't feel free to subscribe on YouTube, and you'll make sure you never miss anything. And I think there's a notification thing, so you'll be notified when I post something new. But also, I welcome in the as you're watching the video tonight, I welcome you to put in comments and questions in the comment section. I may not see them if there's people, my thing doesn't scroll. So once it fills up a little bit, I can see I have to manually scroll it. So I don't always do that. Okay. So now let's get into it. Um, Today we are starting on page 199 at the top of the page. It's called Foundations and Frameworks. As we have talked before about buildings, the metaphysical interpretation of buildings, they are like states of consciousness. In Unity, we teach life is consciousness, and the house or whatever, even in the Bible, when you're doing metaphysical interpretation, a temple means one thing and a tent might mean another thing. As for our states of consciousness, being in great shape means one thing, being run down means another. And it's all it's not like it doesn't have a solid foundation. It's got an absolutely solid foundation and principle. The thing is to understand where the consciousness comes in. We're going to talk about that. So, a little brief history, going back to I'm going to combine the Bible and metaphysics. The temple had been taken over. It was, what is that word? It begins with a D. It was defiled. The Hebrew people don't eat, pork because it's considered an unclean animal, and they had put pig's blood on the altars and everything, and it was basically destroyed. So the people were called back to. There was a time when they got permission to go back and rebuild the temple. by now people had scattered during what's this dysphoria. They dispersed, and they lived elsewhere for a long time. It's not like we're talking a couple of weeks, for a long time, and they had settled in and started new lives, and um, now they were being called back to rebuild the temple. And it was difficult to get the people to come back. In our own lives, we sometimes slip away from our spiritual path. We may, they call it backsliding, don't they? That we kind of get so distracted by life that we sink into lower consciousness. And as you know from the four quadrants of consciousness, the higher two quadrants are intuitive sensing. That's where our mind reaches and connects with the mind of God. The lower human consciousness is the human thought and human emotion. So you see the difference, but it's under feeling, but feeling in higher consciousness is sensing, when you just sense that. And in lower consciousness is it's physical feeling and emotions, and the base part of us. Our job in being here is to enlighten the lower consciousness, to bring it up into the light, which will make us fully empowered to be the children of God that we were born to be, co-creators. So, so to combine that, so what that kind of compounded combined the metaphysical, which is your state of consciousness, and the historical, which was rebuilding the temple. So as we talk about rebuilding the temple, we're going to be talking on two different levels. One is the spiritual, and the other our personal consciousness. Okay, and whether you are building a temple or a cottage or a designing a tent, they all have a blueprint, which is a plan. And the plan in metaphysics is called an idea. An idea is planted in our mind. We are inspired in our higher consciousness. In our lower consciousness, we are influenced. Okay, think of the word in flowing. Okay, so the lower consciousness that we live in, that we surround ourselves in, the carnal worldly mindset, can influence. We know that. If that weren't true, there would be no need for advertising. That's what advertising is all about. It's about influencing us to use a product or service. Whereas inspiration comes from above. That's that part of us that says, um, you know, it it's wordless, but it will say we need for the highest good of all, we need blah blah blah. So one is based on want, lower consciousness is based on want, upper consciousness is based on need. When I say need, I don't mean being needy. I mean a critical component for our higher good, or a something that facilitates our higher good. All right. And so we get started here. It says to restore a temple, whether made of stone or mind, which is consciousness. Now we're talking about a temple. So we're talking about our spiritual consciousness. Can you be in lower consciousness and have a temple? You can. What are you worshiping? Could be false gods, could be the church that you were raised in that doesn't align with who you are spiritually. So you have to remember, everything is like circumstantial. We remember what the word circumstantial means. It's what stands around us, what encircles us. So whether we're building in consciousness or we're building in brick and mortar, we are doing that with a blueprint, which is an idea. And we have to start with a good foundation and structure to see if it is sound. We want to make sure it's sound. You know, probably back in the 50s, there was a song, and it actually was turned into a love song, but it was, I think they drew the basic information from the Bible, and it said, build your love on a strong foundation, and happiness will follow you. Build your house on a strong, no, your love on a strong foundation, and you will find a love that's true. And that was way out of whack and way out of tune. And it always sounds good in my head. It doesn't sound so good when I'm doing it. Anyway, if I had a little backup, it would have helped. Maybe you even know that song. Okay, so we have to start with a good foundation. If we don't have a good foundation, the house can't be built. What is it Jesus said? Don't build your house on sand where it'll erode. You have to build your foundation on rock, on something solid. Okay. Now, in our, I have to get political here because it's what happened this weekend. For whenever, who knows how long till this might be seen by someone out in the future, because when it's on YouTube, God knows it can be there for a long time. Maybe aliens could even be beaming it. Well, this is 2021, and on Saturday, despite an amazingly clear and concise prosecution presentation, um, the defendant was acquitted on technicalities. And those were technicalities that were really, they weren't reasons, they were excuses. Because, well, we're not going to go into that. You can, if this is years from now, look in the history book. But here's the thing, though: the decisions that were made were flawed because they were based on personal preference, not on the basis of the flawless evidence that was presented. In fact, those who voted to acquit weren't paying attention. One was putting his feet up on a desk, which is so totally disrespectful. And it talks about how we have fallen away from a consciousness of respect for our country, our government, and the people that the politicians are supposed to be serving. This is not serve yourself. This is serve the people. Someone was just on the Rachel Maddow show, and they were talking about calling people to serve the country. And they said this is not about looking out for your own political agenda. It's looking for being of service to the people. So we'll hold that thought, okay? So if you're building a foundation on a temple on a flawed foundation, it will eventually crumble. So whatever state of consciousness that became a part of the foundation of the future for the people involved in this, and we're a part of it, so we're going to have to experience whatever comes out of it. But you can see you cannot build a foundation of lies. It's a how you just have like a house of cards. You're not going to have anything solid. So when someone is only looking out for themselves, the temple is built on a weak foundation, and it will give out because there's nothing strong to support it. Now let's talk about your personal faith, okay? Uh, And that's why we stand for all the people who stood together and presented the case, and even the Republicans, the 7 Republicans who went against everyone else in the Senate to stand, the other Republicans in the Senate to stand for um, the truth and justice. They're building a foundation in consciousness, but this foundation is being built every day. And so we have to continuously focus on the foundation, not on the flaws that people are trying to enact. So hopefully, we are going to be headed toward accountability as people refuse to be bullied by the politicians that were actually, some of them who voted to acquit voted out of fear. They've been threatened. Um, their constituents may be threatening them, but we've talked about that before. A politician or a leader is like a shepherd. And if they let the sheep tell them where to go, the sheep are not supposed to, well, they're just not as bright as the shepherd. That's why sheep need shepherds. And if you have educated, informed, knowledgeable, experienced people leading, they need to lead. They need to lead through truth and justice and the highest of all people. Now, let's put this into your life. Are you the shepherd of your life? Are you the leader? Are you taking the sheep, which is your human part, your animal consciousness? Are you leading it? Or is it leading you, wearing you down, making you feel, guilty for standing up for your own self, you know? Uh, so you see how it works in every circumstance. It doesn't matter whether you're baking a cake or building a temple. It's all built on principle. And if you don't follow principle, the cake or the temple will fall. All right. So the foundation of our spiritual temple is faith. Is there a crack of doubt in our foundation? Can we mend it? Or do we need to tear it up and start over? We each have to discover that for ourselves. And I've said it before, the metaphysics and the principles that I am teaching through this book and through my ministry, it's not like it has to be unity. Unity's the only way. No, unity can enhance whatever your faith group is. You have to be the the spiritual evolution program that is based on what you need where you are right now. So when I say faith, if you are not if you are not very, very confident in your faith, uh in let's say the church you go to, if you are not totally confident to say this is true, this works, that's why I'm here, you might want to consider either trying to understand it more because you're already there. Try to understand it more, and if you can't come to terms with who you are on your inside, you're not going to build a strong spiritual foundation. When I found unity, I knew it was for me. That did not deny any of the good I received from my Catholic upbringing. I do not call myself a recovering Catholic. I call myself a child of God. I am a unity minister. I am a metaphysician. And that is what I hope, I was listening to Joyce Meyer the other day because even she does say truth here and there that aligns with who I am. And oh, phooey, I got so hooked up on Joyce Meyer. I'm making my excuse for watching Joyce Meyer. I lost my point. I'm going to have to wait. It'll probably be back. Okay, so we're talking about foundations. I'll be darned. I hate it when I get off track like that. But okay, let's just go back. So our foundation has to be faith. It has to be something we can stand on and that we believe in. And if we're not in a spiritual support system that believes what we believe, we might want to look elsewhere. Um, we want to make sure we develop a clear, concise credo. Our credo is our belief system. There's an exercise in the back of the book that helps you to discern, is this my credo? Well, develop, what it is. The framework is the structure we build on the foundation. So that's how you build a house, right? You start out with a good solid foundation, and then you start to frame it. You start to put up the beams and stuff. And of course, if you're building a stone temple, but the temples always had a cornerstone. Now, the cornerstone kind of is what the whole structure, it formed the corner, making sure that the walls would be straight and everything would be built with, important word, integrity. Okay, had to be built with integrity. um okay, so the framework holds everything together. There are many beams to the construction, which include integrity in thought, feeling, honesty, and truth. Building blocks of the temple include, and we're talking now about the spiritual temple of human consciousness. So some of the building blocks include marriage, family, relationship, religion. Yeah, religion, which is how you express your spirituality, which can be different for different people. Like I say, unity is my primary path. You can take these principles and apply them anywhere. Okay. Um, building blocks. Building blocks and all are connections that bind us together. The most important building block is the cornerstone. In ancient building practices, the cornerstone was the principal stone placed at the corner of the building. It was the largest and the most solid in the entire structure. Jesus described himself as the cornerstone that his church would be built upon. A united body of believers, here's it, both Jew and Gentile. So it was open to all of God's children, okay? This means the cornerstone represents first the Christ, or the spark of divinity within each person. Jesus embodied and completely expressed his divinity. We are learning how to express our divinity. If we go back to why we're here to learn, and the what's called the cardinal sin, the first sin of Adam and Eve, was trying to have power without learning what power is and how to use it. That's why we're here. We're trying to learn. Good heavens, if Adam and Eve, with no spiritual knowledge or wisdom at all, were trying to go out and be co-creators, what would we create? And I think that's why many of our lives and our governments worldwide are in bad shape. There's no cornerstone, there's no agreed purpose, and integrity in the people who are coming together to build it. It all has to work together. You can't be like the three little pigs where you build straw, house of straw, right? Let's see, there was straw, sticks, you know how to do sticks, and stone. We want to have our house be strong. But he said, these things I do, and even greater things shall you do. So we can do it. We just have to get about really becoming masters at it. You know, you want to be a master carpenter. You want to be a master spiritual teacher. You want to have spiritual mastery in your life. Because you know what? When you do, you're a lot happier. Okay. So Jesus taught it was for all believers, which I interpret as applying to all God's children, even all creation. The cornerstone in our lives would be our consciousness, and the strongest cornerstone, Christ consciousness, our spiritual center. Now, maybe someone from another faith group wouldn't use it as Christ consciousness, but they would possibly have a word that would cover that grounding. The grounding in the unseen knowledge that I know that I know that I know. I don't know how I know, but I know that I know that I know. That's what a cornerstone is like. It has to be that firm. Keep in mind, as we explore cornerstones and foundations, that this paradigm has no limits. It applies to our personal lives, humankind, the economy, ecology, and our government. The cornerstone or strongest element of our government is the Constitution. Our forefathers built America and developed the law of the land and shared values to protect it. Now, did you hear that? Shared values. Now, remember when, you know, they were all getting together and writing the Constitution, and they were not split so much by parties as they had this vision, and they wanted to create this vision for all people. Now that's the Constitution is to serve us all for the highest good of all. If you were in a church setting, it would probably be called your statement of faith, that the people who come to this church, this is what we base our lives on. This is our faith. And our faith does not, should not tell us, there should be no one out in this realm, in the human realm, that should be telling us how we are to live our spiritual lives. As a minister, I like to present ideas, and then you take them and you see how they apply in your life. You try them on, you see how they work. If something I say is not up your alley, you go, she is nuts, not going there. There was I connect with my, I'm sorry, a little runny nose. um I connect with my Joyce Meyer videos in the, you know, during my prayer time through YouTube, and there was one today and it said Joyce Meyer on tattoos, and I said nope. Not watching that one. I think I know how Joyce Meyer probably feels about tattoos. I know why I have mine. They're very meaningful to me. And when I got them, I was very, very thoughtful about why I was getting the tattoo. So, a lot of what she says I agree with. Maybe I'll listen to the tattoo thing and see what she had to say, but I certainly wasn't up for it this morning. Okay. Um, So, if we decided that we could not be aligned, as a matter of fact, there was a different degree. I was going to get a study at home degree um, on religion. And when I found out my statement of faith did not match theirs, I I backed out. I don't think I got my deposit back. I might have gotten a part of my deposit back. I don't think I got the whole thing. Um, but it doesn't matter. I don't care about the money. I care about whether your statement of faith agrees. So if you're not sure about the church you're in, look up the statement of faith. If you don't know that, you should know a statement of faith before you join a church. But sometimes we go to that church, from when we're born, and we just kind of keep going along. In some churches, they have what is called the Nicene Creed, and that's a part of the Catholic Church. And I could recite the whole thing of that from all these years, and I can metaphysically interpret it. But there came a time when our beliefs veered off. Doesn't make the Catholic Church wrong, doesn't make me wrong. Just came to a different place. Oh my goodness, it's past time already. How did I do that? I didn't even make it through a page. Let me just finish this up. Okay, so remember, this was written years ago, okay? Not years, maybe 3 years ago. And this is how much things have changed, okay? This is what I wrote back then. Based on the activities and decisions made by the current administration, it is chipping away at the cornerstone with chisels of the false gods powered by self-interest, greed, separation, and rebellion against the values we collectively hold, or at least collectively held. When we compromise the values of a people united, everyone suffers. If this is in your family, and your family is no longer holding the same values, if you cannot find a way to peacefully coexist, the whole family will suffer. And that's sad, but it is. Sometimes you have to stand for what is true. You have to be true to yourself. That doesn't mean to be true to your lower nature. It means to be true to the highest self. As the cornerstone of the temple of consciousness must be the universal good, so must the cornerstone of our lives and the government be solid and for the good of the whole. All right. Well, there's some food for thought. It was very difficult going through this. Sorry, I have a runny nose. It was very, very difficult going through this past Saturday. There was utter distress at the incongruence. It was totally incongruent. And then when Mitch McConnell declared that Donald Trump was guilty and should be held accountable after he just acquitted him based on a technicality, we must explore this. Okay? So that's the government piece. We must explore in our own hearts and our own lives what our own motives are, whether it's in our marriage, our workplace, or our friendships. We have to work it out. We have to find the cornerstone of our life and live it. Okay? Right now, I'm stressing is our democracy, because we're in trouble. We are incongruent. We are not coming into alignment for what is right for the good of the whole. And some people are saying, let's just move on and get past it. My dear friends, if we don't deal with it, it is only going to grow. And that's in your life. Let's say someone has a problem with alcohol, and they say, well, I'll cut back. If they have a problem with alcohol, if you don't have a problem with alcohol, you can have a couple of drinks and you're fine, you're fine. But if you have a problem with it, stop making excuses. Do something. If you have a problem with being distracted, if you have a problem with feeling too much guilt or shame, or that you're not good enough, you got to deal with it. You can't just move on. That's why when they have those makeover shows on TV, they get someone, they doll them all up, they give them a haircut, and I could use one. They do all that stuff, new wardrobe. if they haven't changed inside, then next week they're going to look like they looked when they walked in. Maybe the makeover helped them see a possibility for themselves, but it has to get inside. We live from inside out. And when we stay connected to that inside, the inner parts where God said he put the truth, then everything gets better. Be strong. Be good. Pay attention. You're never too broke to pay attention. I hope I'll see you tomorrow night when we are looking at the power of family, sacred building block of the temple. Please be open to the fact that there are many expressions of family. Don't assume I'm just talking traditional. You know what happens when you assume? Have a good night. Many blessings.